life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentations. I hear the sweet though far off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It finds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? How can I keep from singing? What though my joys and comforts die? I know my Savior liveth. What though the darkness gathered round? Songs in the night he giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that refuge clinging, since Christ is Lord of heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing? How can I keep from singing? I lift my eyes, the cloud grows thin. I see the blue above it, and day by day that pathway smooths. Since first I learned to love it, yeah, the peace of Christ makes fresh my heart. The fountain ever springing, for all things are mine since I am his. How can I keep from singing? How can I keep from singing? No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that refuge clinging, since Christ is Lord of heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing? How can I keep from singing? I've been stacking up the years I spent trading punches with the enemy. Ooh, built myself a double thick stone tower of lies higher than the eyes can see. Trapped in my flesh and bone, crying out to you, Lord, I'm desperate. Love, come rattle this cage and set me free. All of my fears like Jericho walls gotta come down, come down. All of my fears like Jericho walls gotta come down, oh Lord. My prison turns to ruin when your love moves in. All of my fears like Jericho walls gotta come down, oh Lord. the pride and the blame, cutting straight to the heart of me. Ooh, long before I ever called your name, you were fighting for my victory. Carved in your flesh and bone, the wounds that have set my soul's forgiven. Yeah, now I can feel the darkness trembling. All of my fears like Jericho walls gotta come down, calm down. All of my fears like Jericho walls gotta come down, calm down. Oh Lord, my prison turns to ruin when your love moves in. All of my fears like Jericho walls gotta come down, calm down. Oh Lord, my prison turns to ruin when your love moves in. All of my fears like Jericho walls gotta come down, oh Lord. Rebuild me from the ground up. All I wanna see is you. Terrify the lies with the truth. All of my fears like Jericho walls gotta come down, calm down. All of my fears like Jericho walls wanna come down, oh Lord. My prison turns to ruin when your love moves in. All of my fears like Jericho walls gotta come down, oh Lord. My prison turns to ruin when your love moves in. All of my fears like Jericho walls gotta come down, oh Lord. My prison turns to ruin when your love moves in. All of my fears like Jericho walls gotta come down, oh Lord.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. A kind of impromptu live stream because I didn't realize, obviously, because I had a phone call earlier today that is going to take me away for tomorrow. So I figured we go ahead and we've gotten to that point in Revelation now. We're about to hit into the second interlude with the sixth trumpet. Well, we just finished reading this morning. And before we head to the seventh trumpet, there's an interlude and for about a chapter and a half that we'll be in. And so I figured tonight be a wonderful time to go ahead and kind of do a quick recap of where we've been thus far in Revelation, and hopefully answer some questions. If you guys have questions about what we've read so far, or any other thing, if you want to ask me anything else, you can ask me anything else. That's what's the Ask Me Anything. It's on the thumbnail. So you can ask me anything that you like as well. So I figured it kind of encompass all of those things. And guess what? I have Sharon that wanted to pop in real quick and say hello to everyone that was going to pop in today. So again, I don't know how many people are going to be here tonight, but this is conversations mostly going to be fueled by you. So I can do the recap, but if you guys don't have any questions or have any additional questions for me or anything like that, it's going to be a very short stream.
Yes.
Because I don't feel like going up ahead beyond where we currently are. And we'll just have to pick that up on Monday morning. So, but hello. I saw Cool Ramon pop in this evening. Good morning.
Good evening.
Good evening, Cool Ramon.
I'm super white. I'm like super white.
Yeah. And I'm perfect with the lighting.
Yeah, you look white too.
Because I'm super dark. Literally, I was sitting in here before Sharon got in here. I had all the lights off. I have additional lights over here. And I have one that's above us. And I only had that one above us, and you could barely see me. I was so dark, and I was like, I got to turn these on.
My retinas are being burned.
The secret is not to look directly at those lights.
It doesn't matter. It's like a halo around my seeing. I have very bad light sensitivity.
Yeah. So, I can see how. There you go.
Oh, you can see me.
Yeah.
I actually have a really good tan right now.
It looks like she needs a little bit more of a tan if she's going to be in here with the lights on.
Yeah, for real.
I told Sharon, I said she needs to go ahead and do a few more live streams on her own, and she can talk about things that she wants to talk about.
like UFOs, aka demons.
So anyway, so as you guys are rolling in, I saw a couple of people over on Rumble. So thank you for being over on Rumble. Make sure you guys hit that like button, the thumbs up over on Rumble. I appreciate your guys' support over there as well. And of course, the support that we receive over here on this channel as well. Just a quick shout out to our newest member, Richard Winter, who became a member this morning. Thank you so much. I'll go ahead and put that up on our screen real quick. Where are all my banners at? There they are. We are currently 7 of our 20 of our goals. So you guys continue to rock. You guys continue to support this channel. So thank you guys so much for that. I appreciate it. And I know Sharon appreciates it. And, you know, we just got a lot of stuff going on and got lots of life stuff happening. So got a lot of things on the pot at the moment, or on the stove, as they say.
In the pot, on the stove.
On the stove, not in the pot.
In the pot?
Is it in the pot?
Like stir the pot.
No,
Yeah.
no, we're not stirring the pot though.
No, nobody needs to stir that
No,
pot.
we don't want to stir the pot. So, but anyway, if you guys haven't caught my latest video over on Let's Be Frank, I did a non-traditional video over there. I was actually reacting to my very first video on YouTube, which was 7 years ago. I started on YouTube. I didn't realize it was that long until I was looking at that video and I saw the date when I shot it. I was like, oh, wow, that was a long time ago. So I had fun reacting to that. So if you haven't checked that video out, it's over on the main channel. So you can go check that out over there. I had a lot of fun reacting to that one. And pretty funny story behind that one. We actually had a call that Sharon and I needed to both be on at like a certain time.
At 2 o'clock.
At 2 o'clock. And in my head, it was like at 2:30 we were doing the call, not at 2 o'clock. And so here I am. I'm just reacting to this video the entire time. And Sharon's sitting over on the couch over here. And she's kind of like looking at me. I was like, why is she looking at me outside of, you know, being so handsome?
That I was being a submissive.
But it
like,
wasn't that.
A biblical submissive.
It wasn't that. It wasn't that adoration that you have, like you're looking. It wasn't that. No, it was like she was like,
Death.
Are you done? Type thing. I finally had to stop. I was like, what do you need? She's like, we have a call in like 2 minutes. I was like, nah, it's at 2:30. And so I pop over to the email and it's definitely at 2 o'clock. So I had like 2 minutes to try to scramble to get all the settings right on the call, which it bled into the call a little bit. I had to kind of finagle things to get us ready for it. But finagle. No.
It has never been finagle.
Anyway, so with that being said, that's all kind of cool that, you know, behind the scenes stuff that was taking place. And, you know, we're going to do a quick recap of Revelation 1 through 9. I think that's what's on the title. Yeah, 1 through 9. And so, yeah, we'll do a quick recap on that. So that way you guys are up to date and we can use this video. I can chop parts of this video up and we can put it on the channel as a standalone, as a quick recap of what we've thus covered so far. And hopefully we'll have a few more people pop in so they can ask me questions and we can have a discussion and conversation and all that fun stuff.
Yes.
Before I turn into a pumpkin because I'm tired.
Yes. I'm going to go watch while you teach. I'm watching Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Yeah, I thought that movie was a lot older than it was. That's why I asked you to look at the date when it was released.
There's a older one.
Well, I know there's an older one, but that particular one I thought was way earlier in the 2000s.
Like the George of the Jungles, Brendan Fraser era.
Yeah. So I was thinking it was more like maybe 2000, 2001. And I was like 2008. I was like, oh, wow. I said, it's his career was, well, Sharon went on to tell me she didn't believe that movie did really well. So,
I don't think it did very well.
But anyway, he's a pretty cool actor. I like watching a lot of his films.
Well, The Rock just did this isn't Bible study material, but The Rock just did a spin-off from that.
Just did it?
It's like Journey to
the Center of the Earth?
No. It's a mysterious island or something.
Center of the Mars?
I don't know. I haven't watched it, but I thought the old one's good. So I know that the old one's good.
Well, go watch your movie and I'll see who pops in and we'll do a quick recap on the chapters that I have.
I'm going to have these lights for hours.
Hours and hours and
Okay,
hours.
I love you.
Okay, love you too.
Oh,
Sharon's leaving, guys. I'll wait for her to get out the way so I can
stage right.
stage left.
Right.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be stage left though. You're supposed to go out that way. So
Taking the dog.
yes, take the rat with you. All right. Okay, guys. Well, we're going to do a quick recap of chapters 1 through 9 real quick with you guys there. And if you guys have any questions about our current Bible study that we're currently in, maybe you had questions maybe about the chapter that we've, you had a question about one of the chapters, maybe a question about a particular moment in Revelation thus far that we've gotten to. I don't want to get out ahead. So only chapters 1 through 9 is what we're kind of touching on tonight and covering. I don't want to get us way out in front before we even have an opportunity to study it. So again, just a quick note, we will not be doing Bible study tomorrow morning. I have something that came up I have to take care of tomorrow. So tonight is basically going to be that live stream, but instead of progressing further, we're going to go ahead and just do a recap tonight because I don't want to go ahead and cover chapter 10 as we were going to tomorrow, because if we did, that people would miss out tomorrow, and I don't want people missing out tomorrow for that. So anyway, so with that being said, it's great to see you guys. So let's go ahead and kind of do a quick recap of what we've already talked about here in Revelation. And we started this journey back in the second week of July, I believe. We started our journey into Revelation. And I did a couple of videos. We did a couple of the foundational videos that we need to know before studying Revelation, things that were required, right? So prerequisites before going into Revelation, because Revelation has been one of these books that have been talked about, literally forever, the last 2,000 years, if you will. And people have a lot of opinions about it. People have a lot of people have a lot of things to say about the book of Revelation, right? And so because of that, there's obviously been theologies that have been built around just Revelation, just around the end times. And so, and some of this stuff has been taught for, forever. Some of this stuff just started being taught like the last last 100 years or so. And so when we started to tackle Revelation, I wanted to go ahead and kind of lay down a foundational knowledge of what we are about to dive into, because if we didn't have a good foundational starting point, we were going to have a hard time making our way through Revelation. And one of the biggest things I talked about early on was making sure that obviously many of us have been taught certain things about Revelation. I said that was okay. I said, but if we're going to go ahead and do this study, hey, Greg, great to see you, my friend. If we're going to do the study, we need to make sure that we were going to be open like a student would be as a teacher is teaching, and consider the different viewpoint that is being presented. Obviously challenging our way of thinking. Two things can occur from that, right? One, you can actually become better within your own theology of defending your theology. Or two, you can actually consider the theology that is being presented before you and maybe say, I never thought to look at it that way. And that's okay. And I told you this was not a salvation issue disagreement that we would be having on this, right? Because there's so many schools of thought. There's at least 4 predominant schools of thought about Revelation. And, I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong. I'm just going to present this view that I have been studying to you guys, and you guys can determine whether or not you believe it's good, or no, what I've learned is right. And but don't deny yourself the opportunity to actually maybe take an opportunity and listen to a side being presented to you. And that's all I ask, right? And so there's a couple things we talked about with the discussion and Bible study of Revelation, right? There was a couple things that we need to understand. The first thing we need to understand, who was this book being written to? Many times you may have asked people, or people may have told you, or maybe you've studied under people that say Revelation's only partly for the Christian, and it's mainly for the ethnic Jew, right? And that I don't believe that theology is correct, because this book is being written to Christians. Why would it be written to ethnic Jews, right? Why would John be writing to ethnic Jews if he was writing to the churches in Ephesus or within Asia Minor there? And so we have to take that into consideration. Who is this book being written to? Well, it was being written to the churches in Asia Minor. These 7 churches in Asia Minor were being written to, and John would have been very familiar with these churches. And within these churches, who makes up the body of the church? Well, those who believe in Jesus Christ, right? So fellow believers. So this is who this book is being written to, fellow Christians. And again, I mentioned early on in our foundational understanding of the text that we're going to be tackling, right? What is the church? The church is the gathering, right? The gathering of believers. The word church does not exist in Scripture. It's ecclesia, right? Gathering, assembly, if you will. And that can be found all throughout the Old Testament and obviously in the New Testament. It's always been a something that's been utilized to demonstrate God's people who've been brought together. And so we talked about that. And we talked about a few other things that we need to understand as well. We talked about the revelation of Jesus Christ, right? What did that mean? It meant the revealing of Jesus Christ. Christ revealing what was going to take place. No mystery, right? Nothing ambiguous, no confusion. Just Jesus revealing to the saints. Who are the saints? God's people. Who are God's chosen people? Christians. Those who are believers of Jesus Christ. Those who believed on the Messiah on this side of the cross. Those who believe in Jesus Christ on this side of the cross, right? God's chosen people. Those who've been chosen by God are those who have been saved through Jesus Christ. So a couple of historical things that we want to kind of touch on and talk about. First, Revelation speaks to Christians facing pressure and persecution, right? This is being written to those first century Christians who were under tremendous amount of persecution, right? Tremendous amount of persecution and pressure, right? To worship idols that were prevalent in those days, and they're still prevalent today. We just call them different things today. They're still prevalent, right? And they were not told that they were going to be spared any of this stuff. They were not going to be spared from being martyred. They weren't going to be spared from being persecuted from the world, right? In actuality, Jesus says, "You endure," right? Endure. So Revelation speaks to Christians facing pressure and persecution, as well as those tempted to compromise. Opposition arose first from the Jewish synagogues. We see that in chapter 2 and chapter 3 in Revelation. Judaism was respected within the Roman Empire as an ancient religion, and Jews were exempt from worshiping Roman gods and participating in the imperial cult. Some Jews were hostile towards the church and accused believers before the Roman government and authorities of being anti-Roman and troublemakers. We see that in chapter 2, verse 9 of Revelation. The Romans also opposed the church, especially through the imperial cult, which gathered political, social, and economic influencers into a single dominating religious force, complete with temples, priests, festivals, and the like. Christians who refused to participate in the idolatrous and immoral cult activities of the emperor worship, often connected with local trade guilds, face economic and social rejection. The imperial cult was especially strong during the reign of Domitius, during 81 to 96 AD, whose lordship directly contradicted the most basic Christian confessions. Jesus is Lord. Hey, AC Cruz, great to see you. That Jesus is Lord. Although not systematic and widespread persecution under Domitius was real and threatened to get much worse in the near future. The church also faced a threat of false teachers who urge accommodations to the surrounding society. Teachers such as Jezebel and her followers. We see that in chapter 2, verses 20 and 24. And the Nicolaitans in chapter 2, verses 6 and 14, 15. The temptation to forsake Christ in order to fit into the surrounding culture and avoid persecution surfaces in these 7 letters. Ephesus has forsaken its first love in chapter 2, verse 4. Some of the Pergamum and Thyatira are following false teachers. We see that in chapter 2, 14 through 15 and 20. Sardis has a reputation for being alive, but really dead. Chapter 3, verse number 1. And Laodicea remains lukewarm. Chapter 3, 16 through 17. Revelation comforts and assures the faithful who are suffering, but sternly warns those who are compromising with the world system. The double message of comfort and warning also relates to the overall purpose of the book, right? So we see this message being delivered through the book of Revelation to the early Christians, right? Being written to the early Christians, right? I mentioned that this book is a hope, right? A book of hope, a book of victory, and a book of endurance. And also, obviously, a book of warning. And so we see this in the scope of Revelation. And many times, what we tend to kind of hear in some theologies is that we don't, as Christians, we shouldn't have to worry about the big tribulations that are coming our way. And I propose, and this isn't just me, this has been taught from early church history, that truly isn't the case, because the way this book is written, if you read the book for what it is, it's not a book that promises that we will be spared the trouble that the world will see. However, we will be spared from God's wrath. And a lot of people have a hard time with that notion. And it's because most of our viewers here on the channel, and this theology is popular within the United States, it's because it's easy to believe that. Why? Because the United States Christian has not suffered persecution. Not much like the rest of the world of Christians who suffer persecution daily, right? More Christians have been martyred in the 20th century than all of church history combined. Again, let me just rephrase that. More Christian martyrs have been made in the 20th century than all of Christian church history. That tells me one of two things, right? One, that we're very fortunate to live where we live in the United States, if you live in the United States. And two, that we are in a beastly system of this world, of a fallen world, that is continually to become more and more hostile toward Christians, right? And what type of book would have been written in the first century to tell Christians, hey, I know you guys are suffering right now, but down the line, Christians won't have to suffer as much because they're going to be raptured out before anything major happens, right? It doesn't make sense. So let's kind of talk about the overall purpose of this book, the overall purpose of Revelation. Revelation answers the most basic of all questions. Who is Lord of the universe? The Roman emperor claimed lordship by extending his power through local rulers, taxation, the military, trade guilds, temples, and various symbols like statues and coins. But Revelation was written to reassure Jesus' disciples that God is on his throne and that Jesus, not Caesar, is Lord of all. In spite of how things appear now, the decisive spiritual battle has been won at the cross and resurrection, and Jesus will one day return to establish his eternal kingdom. Believers should continue their faithful witness to the one true Lord, no matter the cost. Those who are compromising with the idolatrous and immoral ways of the world are warned to repent or face judgment. Revelation provides a transforming vision of spiritual reality that encourages believers to follow Jesus faithfully. The book uses powerful visions and symbols to overpower the ever-present symbols of Rome and any other worldly empire. Bauckham refers to these transforming symbols as Christian prophetic counter images, designed to impress upon the reader a different view of the world, a heavenly perspective. Hearing or reading Revelations like putting on a virtual reality helmet in order to see true spiritual reality. God defeats the powers of darkness, judges evil, rescues his people, and transforms creation. The book unveils reality from God's perspective. The prevailing images of this world fade and are replaced with heavenly images of God, sovereign rule over the universe. In this way, Revelation overpowers readers to re-enter their present world and persevere faithfully. In sum, Revelation proclaims hope made possible by Christ's victory, hope that brings comfort to the faithful who are now suffering, hope that calls for repentance from those who are compromising, and hope that one day God will judge evil and live among his people in a new heaven and new earth. Hey, Crash Bandit, thanks for joining us over on Rumble this evening. He says, Crash Bandit says, I just went to Sunday school as a kid, but I have no desire to be fed to the lions like back in the day in Rome for other entertainment. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks for doing my show. Yeah, hey, absolutely. I appreciate you guys tuning in and supporting the stream. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I appreciate all of you guys who tune in. Again, this was kind of an unscheduled live stream. Was not preparing to do something like this, but won't be doing one tomorrow morning. So I figured we'd go ahead and do one tonight and kind of a recap and a little bit more foundation again for those that maybe haven't been able to be caught up to where we are in Revelation. So I really do enjoy doing these things. So let's talk about a little bit about the literacy genre, right? The literacy genre, obviously, Revelation is not like the other books of the Bible. The literacy genre of Revelation is unlike any other books of the Bible. There are some that are similar to Revelation, such as Daniel, Ezekiel. Important for us to know, right? We should understand literature genre. We should understand that, right? We should understand historical narrative. We should understand prophetic books. We should understand apocryphal literature. Excuse me, I always have a tough time saying that one. Poetry and things like that. They're all integrated in the Bible. We have all these genres. It's important to understand those genres when we read, because if we don't understand those genre of literature that we're reading, we're going to struggle and we're going to come to strange conclusions. All right, so Revelation is a strange book filled with bizarre images, right? Like locusts with human faces and tails that sting like scorpions. And we just learned about those yesterday in chapter 9, 7 and 10. A woman clothed with the sun. We'll see that in chapter 12. a beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. We'll see that in chapter 13, which is still upcoming, and so on. Revelation uniqueness results from its literary genre of prophetic apocryphal literature letter. As a letter, Revelation includes a greeting. We see that greeting, chapter 1, verses 4 and 5, and a closing in chapter 22, verse 21, and targets a specific audience. Who's the audience? The 7 churches in a province of Asia. That's who the primary audience is. It's the churches, Christians in Asia Minor, not for ethnic Jews. That people somehow, unfortunately, I think many evangelicals have this fixation on ethnic Jews, and not actually the whole thing of God. They tend, some, not all, some tend to kind of make Christians almost a second-class citizen within the hierarchy of worshiping God, like we're the stepsons and not heirs to glory with Jesus Christ, as stated in Ephesians and Galatians, and that we are these, right? We are spiritual sons of Abraham, of the promise. Anyway, so who is it? Hey, Sabrina, good evening. Good evening. Good to see you. So we're just doing a quick recap. I say quick, we're just doing a recap of what we've already talked about in Revelation. So thanks for coming in. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the thing. I will stop and I'll read it, and I'll do my best to answer. If I don't know the answer, I'll come back to it and get you the answer. So as a letter, right? Who had a specific audience. The audience is the 7 churches in the province of Asia Minor. The 7 locations are named in the order a letter carrier might visit them, starting from Patmos, the place of John's exile, and moving in a clockwise direction to the 7 churches. New Testament letters were meant to be read aloud to believers gathering for worship, and were written to address a particular situation or problem. While the message of Revelation certainly extends beyond those 7 churches, any approach to interpreting the book that ignores its message to the 7 churches will distort its meaning significantly. Let me read that one more time for us, right? While the message of Revelation certainly extends beyond those 7 churches, any approach to interpreting the book that ignores its messages, the message to the 7 churches, will distort its meaning significantly. What does that mean? Well, it means this letter has been written to the 7 churches. The entire letter has been written to the 7 churches. The letter doesn't end for Christians after the letter to the churches. It continues on. Many times, some will try to detach that first part of Revelation, the first 3 chapters or the first 4 chapters, and then say, well, that's for the Christian. Now everything else is for ethnic Israel, right? And that's incorrect. You're not reading it right. If you read it that way, right? If you ignore the 7 churches, then your whole message is skewed. You're going to come to conclusions that are really, really out there. And that's what we're trying to avoid. That's why we're doing the study in Revelation on the channel. Let me take a sip. Revelation also claims to be a prophecy. We see that in verse number 3 in chapter 1. In chapter 22, we see that in verse 7. Chapter 10, 18 and 19, including both predictions about the future, foretelling, and the proclamation about the present, forthtelling, into places where Revelation is described as a prophecy. Readers are commanded to obey the prophecy. Again, chapter 1, verse 3, and chapter 22, verse 7, indicating a focus on proclamation rather than prediction. Revelation speaks about the future to be sure, but it speaks more forcefully about how God wants his people to live in the present. Finally, Revelation is an apocalypse, a term meaning unveiling or revelation. Apocalyptic literature focuses on God's communication to a well-known person like John or Daniel. The book of Daniel. Through visual images with messages that he will intervene in the course of history to overthrow evil empires and establish his kingdom. Apocalyptic, the apocalyptic assures or assumes a crisis situation where hope lies in the future. Through fantastic visions and strange images, God promises salvation for the faithful and judgment for the wicked. Revelation unveils transcendent reality that powers the present situation of suffering in this temporal world. Apocalyptic appears in the Old Testament books like Daniel and Zechariah and certain sections of the prophets, Isaiah and Ezekiel. This type of literature flourished in the Jewish works from 200 BC to AD 100. Jesus' Olivet Discourse, Matthew chapter 24 through chapter 25, and Mark 13 even displays apocalyptic tone. I would also include the same message in Luke as well there. So there are 5 major approaches, right, to interpreting Revelation. 5 major approaches. And this is why I say this, right? This is what I talked about in most of our Bible studies thus far, is that you're going to fall in one of these, and that's okay. We're not going to debate during our Bible studies about where you fall in this section, but all of us fall in one of these based on how we interpret Revelation. What I'm trying to do with us here on the channel is to interpret it the best way I know how to interpret it. All right. And this is what I've been explaining and speaking on for the last few weeks, several weeks. And I pray that I am faithful to the text. I do not attempt to read into the text. We are taking the text for what it says, and we're reading it, and then we're taking time to examine it. And I think that's important. So here are the 5 major approaches to interpreting Revelation. Okay. A preterist. Revelation is directed to the first century Christians, encouraging them with a message of hope of how God plans to deliver them from the evils of the Roman Empire. Historic Revelation offers prophetic outline of church history from the first century until the future coming of Christ. A futurist Revelation is concerned with what will happen at the end of history just before the second coming of Christ. Idealist Revelation is a symbolic description of the ongoing battle between good and evil. The book offers timeless spiritual truths to equip Christians for preserving in the world filled with suffering and injustice. And number 5, eclectic. The approach combines the strengths of several approaches, taking seriously the message to the original readers, acknowledging portions of the book that await future fulfillment, and finding relevant spiritual messages for Christians of every age. So, I kind of fall in that last one myself. And a little bit of the historic, but it kind of takes a little bit of all of them. Right? There are several important interpretive principles from reading Revelation responsibly. All right, first, we must take seriously the message of the original readers, which makes knowing the original context of the 7 churches extremely important. We must resist the temptation to ignore the original audience and jump directly to God's message for us. These current events approach to reading Revelation is extremely dangerous because it usually leads to reading meaning back into the book that is not really there in the first place. And there's a warning in that in chapter 22. Second, we must take Revelation's picture language seriously, but not always literally. The woman who sits on the 7 hills, for example. Our interpretive approach should match the literary type used by the author. Revelation communicates at several different levels. 1, vision level, what John saw. 2, text level, the words written on the page. 3, referent level, what the vision refers to in real life. And 4, rhetorical level, what impact the vision makes on the hearer. With Revelation, we usually know what it is saying, text and vision, as well as the effect it has on its reader, rhetorical. But we're sometimes not sure what it is talking about, referent, when trying to understand the meaning of the book's symbols and images. We must pay close attention to the Old Testament background, the Greco-Roman world of John's day, and Jewish intertestamental literature. Okay? And finally, we should focus on the main theological message of each vision and resist the temptation to know all the details with absolute certainty. Reading Revelation calls for humility. It's best to start with the big picture and move toward the understanding of specifics, rather than in reverse. Revelation is much more than an eschatological puzzle to be solved. Rather, it is God's communication to the 7 churches and by extension to the universal church in every age about how to live faithfully in light of the future he has in store. The big idea section for each passage can help us keep the main thing when reading Revelation. Okay, so with that being said, with all that being said, you guys have any questions about anything, about what we've read thus far, right? No? I'll give it a couple seconds. I'm going to take a drink anyway. So we're going to do a quick recap of what we've read so far. I'm going to call them the key themes of Revelation thus far. How's that? Key themes. And these are the key themes that we should look at, right? The first part of Revelation, chapter 1, is so important. It's so important for us to understand that first chapter and the first 3 verses. It really helps guide you through the rest of the book. Okay? If you understand the first 3 verses, you're going to have a much easier time making your way through this book. Right? So the introduction of the book of Revelation, which runs through verse 20, begins with a statement of the book's title, the revelation from Jesus Christ. And that's in verse 1. Next, we are told how the heavenly vision was communicated to John and how this resulted in John's testimony. The second verse. The first paragraph closes with the first 7 beatitudes or blessings that appear throughout the book. The opening lines of Revelation also introduce many of the main themes of the book. The centrality of God in Christ, the imminent fulfillment of God's plans, angelic meditation, John's role as a witness, and the nature of prophecy as promulgation of God's truth, and appropriate response of obedience, and the blessing of those who respond faithfully. A couple key themes from that first section, right? Just a couple of them. God is revealing his plans for consummating human history, and believers who hear and obey the prophecy will be blessed by God. All right, just a couple of key themes here that we see. Next, we see a greeting, doxology, and confession in the next few verses, 4 and 8. Right, the prologue in chapter 1 continues with the greeting and doxology, followed by the prophetic confession. John's greeting of grace and peace to the 7 churches compares to the kind of greeting we would find in a Paul letter. But John includes a fuller description of the source of the greeting, the triune God. One reason this section packs such rhetorical punch is the repetition of threes throughout, threefold description of both the Father and the Son. The number 3, which represents sufficiency and completeness, reinforces the importance of what is being communicated. In the prophetic confession, John highlights the return of Christ and the sovereignty of God, 2 realities that would both comfort suffering Christians and challenge complacent Christians. A couple of key themes to take away from that section, right? The source of grace and peace is the triune God, Father, Spirit, and Son. God the Father, the sovereign ruler of the universe, is in control of all of history. Some great things to take away from that first opening chapter, first opening paragraphs, right? Then we see the next part here, the John's introductory vision. Following a majestic description of the triune God in the prologue, we transition to John's real-time situation on the island of Patmos on the Lord's Day. There is no passage in all of the New Testament that exalts Jesus more than John's vision of the risen and glorified Christ presented here. This introductory vision, 9 through 20, in the first chapter contains 3 sections. The first section includes the worship setting of the vision and John's commission to write. The vision proper comes in chapter 1, 12 through 16, using words drawn largely from Daniel's, Ezekiel, and Isaiah to describe Jesus' power and glory, while individual images certainly depict aspects of Christ's character, such as blazing eyes, penetrating vision. The entire vision has the force of a verbal icon, since it is meant to be seen as a whole. Finally, at 17 through 20 presents John's reaction to the vision. Jesus reassures of John and the important interpretation of 2 key images. Jesus begins speaking in verse 17 and doesn't finish what he has to say until chapter 3, verse 22. Thus, linking John's vision in Revelation 1 with the messages to the 7 churches in Revelation 2 and 3. A couple of key themes that we should look at in this section. Christians experience both the privileges and the responsibilities of the kingdom citizenship in a hostile world. And as a risen and glorified Lord, Jesus lives among his churches as one who protects them, cares for them, and holds them accountable. Some good things to understand. And so then during chapter 2 and 3, he goes through, he talks to the 7 churches. And he gives them as you would say, a status report. You know, where are you guys at as far as your church? What's the church health that you see? And of course, he talks to every single one of those 7 churches. And so as we see, then moving there, we move to the throne room of God in chapter 4. Chapter 4, we get this description of God's throne, and then we see at the end of chapter 4 him holding a scroll in his hand. Switching to chapter 5, still in this interlude, if you will, this scene in heaven, as John sees, he sees that the scroll in God's hand. He says, "Who is worthy?" Or he doesn't say, but one of the elders says, "Who is worthy to open this scroll?" And John looks around and doesn't see anybody worthy on earth, under the earth, in heaven. Nobody's worthy. He breaks down. He starts to cry. He weeps. And then he looks as one of the elders comes to him and says, "Behold, the Lamb." And we see Jesus appear onto the scene, seen as a wounded lamb, but also as a roaring lion. And he is worthy to take the scroll and open the seals. So we see that in chapter 4 and 5. And then we change gears and we head in chapter 6. Chapter 6, we see the seals now being opened by Jesus. Jesus starts opening the seals, and we see the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, right? The 4 horsemen, each one representing things, judgments, preliminary judgments that the world has been going through since the time of sin entering the world. So this has been ongoing judgment. And then we see the 5th seal open up, and that seal shows the saints who have been martyred, right? They cry out to God for justice to take place, for being martyred, right? That's the saints throughout history. That continues on to today, the martyring of saints, as we see. And then there in in chapter 6, we see the 6th seal being opened up, right? And as we see the skies roll back as a scroll, and cosmic activity, the inhabitants of the earth in this context are those unbelievers, those who are not saved by God, right? And we see them all huddled inside caves, wishing for the rocks to fall on them so they could die instead of experience God's wrath. I mentioned to you guys that if we think about the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls as like a drop-down menu, it gets more and more specific in each of the judgments that are described. So we have the seals up here, and you click on the seals and it drops down. We got the trumpets, and you click on the trumpets and it comes down to the bowls, right? It gets more and more specific as we look. And so we head into the next interlude, if you will. After the 6th seal has been opened, we go into an interlude. Once again, we go back to the scene of heaven there in chapter 7. We see the saints singing praises to God, and the elders and that multitude of all the nations, all the people from all nations, tongues, and tribes, all gathered in heaven, singing in one accord, giving praises all in one accord. What a beautiful picture, a multitude unable to count in heaven. And then we shift back to the seals once again being opened, the 7th seal breaking open, and God telling the 4 angels to wait before we start pouring out more judgments, right? That the people on earth need to be sealed. Those, his people, the chosen people, need to be sealed. We see the 144,000, a representation of God's people, those who are saved in Jesus Christ. It's just a number indicating God's people. We see that in there, and then being sealed for to not be touched by the wrath that's about to be poured out from heaven, right? That they're going to continue to be among the people, but God's wrath will not touch them. They will still be martyred. They can still be persecuted, but they will not be touched by God's wrath. And then we see the next chapter there in chapter 8, the trumpet judgments start to come out. The first, second woes are given out, and the earth continues to judgments continue to fall upon the inhabitants of the earth, those who reject God, and they continue to get worse and worse and worse judgments. And now we await the final woe that hasn't come yet for us in our reading yet. We're about to go into another interlude period in chapter 10, where we see another scene in heaven as things are playing out. So that's where we currently are right now in our discussion in our Bible study in Revelation. So hopefully you guys are all caught up now, and you guys have some more foundational things given to you guys from that. So that was fun. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap up for the evening. Thank you guys so much for your guys' attention and your viewership. I appreciate it. I will see you guys on Monday. And until then, God bless. I'll see you guys back real soon. Bye, everyone.
I believe you gave sight to the blind. I believe that the dead came to life. I believe there are wonders and signs. You're still the same. I believe every word that you said. I believe there are scars in your hands, that your goodness is good without end, you'll never change. I will tell of your wonders, sing of your grace. The God of creation knows me by name. The Lord is faithful, yesterday, now, and always, always. Yeah, your mercy is mighty, age after age, and all generations bow down and praise. The Lord is faithful, yesterday, now, and always, always. I believe you will come in the clouds. I believe you are here even now. In your presence, I know there is power, power to save. I will tell of your wonders, sing of your grace. The God of creation knows me by name. The Lord is faithful, yesterday, now, and always, always. Yeah, your mercy is mighty, age after age, all generations bow down and praise. Yeah, the Lord is faithful, yesterday, now, and always, always. You were, you are, you always will be God. You were, you are, always will be God. You always will be God. I will tell of your wonders, sing of your grace. The God of creation knows me by name. The Lord is faithful, yesterday, now, and always, always. Your mercy is mighty, age after age, will all generations bow down and praise. The Lord is faithful, yesterday, now, and always.